Good afternoon, Netrunners. We return to the Crown of Server tournaments here at Worlds 2024 in San Francisco. Bit of a late start to round 3. We had to re-sleeve some cards, but we see AnOddRadish on the left. One second. We got the wrong thing, so Whiteblade's currently running. All right, on the left, we have AnOddRadish playing R+. We're just a little bit into this game. We see a Res Starlit Knight on HQ and a Spin Doctor coming down in the remote. On the right, we have Whiteblade playing Sable, noted criminal enthusiast of the last year or so. That looks like a Paladin Puemu down there, right next to Sable. So right now, from the last list I saw Eric publish, this looks like a Sable deck with that looks like a pretty good value pile with a little bit of tech cards to deal with the hostile corp meta out there facing players. And on the left we have R+, and we're just rolling a mark right now. That's coming into R&D. So when Sable makes a run on the mark, then you get a click back, and then there may be other cards. Eric's not going to check R&D right this moment. Just play Zaya, or play Dr. Nuka, draw 3 cards. So looks like we're not being aggressive after that first possible face check into that Starlit Knight. And then that is a bankroll coming down. That'll be a lot of credits eventually. And turn ends, we do not make a challenge to the mark. It's one face down card in Archives. Could be an agenda with that Spin Doctor covering it. And we have Radish playing Your Digital Life, and this looks like the illegal Your Digital Life alt art from Run Together. But this is a casual level tournament here in the Crown of Servers, so we're not enforcing alt arts that have to meet the clarity standards. And follow that by Hedge Fund, also from Run Together. So that's just a lot of credits coming in. R+ all the way back up to 10 credits. That's a lot of credits. They res all their ice very cheaply. Then we're back to Whiteblade, who's thinking. It's very difficult when you have to decide which ice do I want to run with no breakers, because it all seems like a bad deal. You'll probably end up with a tag and they didn't spend any money. So we're going to keep drawing. And that looks like a Bravado, a Ms. Bones, and an Inside Job that was just drawn. Those are all great cards to have. You can Inside Job the remote. Whatever's in there might be important, might be trying to hope that you can get away with gear checking the criminal. But that's also a Boomerang in Whiteblade's hand. So he can probably get in wherever once. All right, that looks like running Archives. Just getting, I think that might have been the mark, and the 1 credit piling up on the bankroll. Then Boomerang on HQ. There's only 2 subs on Starlit Knight right now. So just easy 2 credit hardware, avoid 2 tags. And that was, I can't quite see that, but I'm going to guess that was a diversion of funds. There was no access. And, oh, that is interesting. Is that a Better Citizen program? We both have to read that. And we see some excited explanation. Yeah, I think that is a Better Citizen program. So the first time the runner plays a run event or installs an icebreaker each turn, you may give the runner 1 tag, and I bet the corp will. And that is dirty. The runner has all the icebreakers still to install and nothing but run events. Corp goes down to 2 credits, but I'm sure that's an incredible thing to have scored, especially in R+, because whenever that goes off, you can gain 2 credits. And then Eric bringing down the class act, going to draw 5, going to look at 5 cards, and then you put 1 on the bottom. So it's great to have for the rest of the game, and it's also great to have in terms of the corp probably doesn't think this is worth trashing because you already drew the 4 cards. But that ongoing filter draw is really good if you end up in a situation where you're tagged. But there's scarier reasons in R+ to keep yourself untagged, then you might lose your class act. And it looks like, yeah, I think it's on to the corp turn, and we are just thinking, drawing a card. There's not a lot going on yet. We got away with the crime of the century, getting a first agenda Better Citizen program. Take a credit, new card in the remote. Could be a lot of things. A Rashida is probably what you're hoping for. And Eric's checking the Better Citizen program again. It is the first time each turn, so you probably want to install a breaker and play a bunch of run events. And looks like we are discussing that strategy. All right, Amakua comes down. Runner takes the tag. And it looks like the corp opted to take money on R+. Now, Amakua, excellent breaker, especially against R+, because a lot of the ice has really low strength, so it doesn't take much for the turtle to come online and break everything. And Archives doesn't have a virus in it yet. All right. That is a Carpe Diem. That'll allow you to, that'll get you just a quick 3 credits profit, and you make a run. I believe this was an Archives mark this turn. So it comes in getting you an additional credit on the bankroll and gets you an Amakua counter. And we are doing the thing where we install a breaker and we just use up as many possible triggers on the Better Citizen program all at once, so we don't just take a steady 1 tag per turn. But that is a Rashida firing for the corporation. I'm going to draw 3 cards and try to see what is being drawn, and a mandatory draw right there. And this is a scary looking board. We saw a wraparound pop up in the corner there. I'm not sure if we accessed it or we just saw it. But even a wraparound is going to get broken by the turtle pretty soon. Then we see Your Digital Life going off for clean 5 credits of profit. And the corp has just has to do something because, all right, that's an upgrade on HQ. And an ice on Archives. Might be aiming to purge out. The upgrade could be anything. For example, I don't know if this is a popular choice, but Trojan Horse is an upgrade that when you access it, you can trace to give the runner tags. That could be placed on HQ. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the operation. I'm thinking of Forced Connection. Very sorry to Kato, who's bringing up these card lookups. And that looks like a degree mill. So you find one of those, then you have to shuffle back 2 installed cards to be able to steal it. Not stealing that though, we just see it. Now we're getting ready to start tracking and with a few more dice. Dice are legal to use to track counters and many things, but we ask that you use them in multiples of 5. So that bankroll with a 6 on it, currently criminal. Got to live up to the faction name. All right, we're thinking for all the scary things that can happen in an early R+. Nice, and that was, by the way, sorry I missed that. That was a gatekeeper on R&D that looks like it fired. So that's why we're revealing and shuffling back a degree mill. So now we have install a second ice card in the remote, advance it. And that is potentially scary because what if that's a second Better Citizen program? That would be annoying. That would be very annoying. It looks like we're rethinking that. Cards coming back to hand. All right, change your mind. Ice R&D, reasonable because Gatekeeper is now down to 0 strength. And that looks like an upgrade that we just barely, I didn't catch what it was, but an upgrade coming down on R&D as well. There's upgrades everywhere today. And we're starting to run out of space on the playmat. We might have to start putting them onto the runner's playmat if the server gets any taller. And second ice on the remote, nothing in the remote. So this might be a play to prepare to purge the turtle down. I missed what the mark is, but we're doing a class act to draw. One at the bottom. I think that looks like a sure gamble was put into hand. Yeah. There's a sure gamble. You do need money, and you do need to... You'll eventually need to pay to bring online some of your breakers and clear all the tags. And then no free lunch hitting the table. This will allow you to clear a tag at paid ability speed. And that might be really good if you suddenly take more tags than you were expecting. And that is Ms. Bones hitting the table. 12 credits for trashing installed cards. There are these conspicuous upgrades on HQ and R&D. This doesn't look like a deck that's going to put a large asset spam presence on the table, but it's really easy to spend Ms. Bones credits. There's upgrades everywhere these days. And a card going in the remote. It's a 5. I'm going to guess that means an Archives mark. All right, Kurupira coming down, spending that Paladin credit, and that should trigger Better Citizen program. It's a little hidden by the Kurupira text, but that looks like the corp is taking 2 credits on the Reality Plus trigger. But as annoying as Better Citizen program is, now you can't trigger R Plus again this turn, so we're going in for the run. It's a big Gatekeeper. No way through that. That's just going to have to fire. Corp draws a bunch of cards and doesn't seem to shuffle anything back. And now we have an inside job on the remote. That'll bypass the first piece of ice. So we do have a way through that Gatekeeper, but now we get to see what's that second ice. Is that going to cause any problems? The corp is thinking because they don't have a ton of credits. All right, no res, and runner gets a degree, or gets a, not a degree mail, gets a tomorrow's headline. And a second tag, because that's one of the gateway, will limit 1 per deck, 3 2s. When a score to stolen, give the runner a tag. Now Eric has 2 tags. And we're popping the no free lunch to get rid of that tag and using the basic action for the other one. So fun turn. We're only have 2 points so far, so Oppo research can't be too big. And that looks like a public trail. And a devastating self-growth program. So public trail to give the runner 1 tag, and then self-growth program bounces 2 cards to the grip, play only if the runner is tagged. So we lose a very, very heavy piggy bank and the Amakua that had a bunch of counters on it. This is a much stronger version of purging virus counters. And then clicking to trash the Paladin Poemu because the runner is tagged, and you can just do that with the basic action card. So some resurgence, well, resurgence is the wrong word, but we see the rare public trail because as much as we, doubt that public trail will land, who has 8 credits these days? I don't. You don't have 8 credits. You're not even playing at this table right now. Now we get to Eric's turn and have to decide what do we do about that tag. And worst of all, when you go to reinstall that Amakua, you'll get another tag from Better Citizen program. And having lost the 7 or so credits on the bankroll, now Eric needs to think carefully, and that's Whiteblade. We need to think carefully about how do we manage the economy from here, because that early Better Citizen program really seems designed to make criminals sad. All right, just draw with Dr. Nuka. Going to get a look at 4 cards with the class act. Believe I saw a twinning in there. Probably keep that. It's very vulnerable to this matchup, but it is an answer. It's multi-access that you don't have to run to build up. We're bringing back the bankroll. And it looks like is that discarding to hand size? 2 doofs. And a pinhole threading. 2 diversion of funds and pinhole threading discarded to hand size. HQ looking like it's not the server we want to hit, especially not now that we have to find something to deal with the Starlit Knight and then possibly have an upgrade stop the joy. Back to the corporation turn. The runner seems to be halted in the aggression. 2 cards in the remote. Corporation has lots of money, and the runner has to take a tag to put any icebreaker on the table. So I bet that the corp feels safe in going for some kind of score. And that is a wraparound on archives that I'm not sure why we're turning it face up. Did we miss it at some point? That was the last turn? Okay, looks like we might have had a run on archives last turn that we just wrapped around. All right, Hollow Man moving into the remote. So, silly me. What would R Plus put on HQ? I probably should have assumed Hollow Man. Nothing has been installed this turn, so you can pay 4 and put 3 advancements on something, and this will allow you to score something. This will allow you to never advance up to a 5-3 from the table. But instead, we have another Better Citizen program. And in the remote, that looks like possibly, is that the Tranquility from this year's H2? I think that might be the Tranquility from this year's half 2 circuit opener kit. And we have the very nifty alt art available to us. Eric taking a draw, and now you're really in trouble now that everything you do is criminal gives you 2 tags. Chesva coming down. That's 2 recurring credits to run centrals. Kurapira coming down. Just taking the 2 tags. Corporation, I believe, thinking about what to do. I think that was a run on archives for 1 credit, getting the bankroll up there. And at this point, as runner, it might be time to give up on tags. You've already been hit by 1 self-growth program. What are the odds that they've got another one? And this is a Rashida firing for the corporation, drawing a bunch of cards. If they're on more than 1 piece of tag punishment, then chances are decent that AnOddRadish has it. But also you've got plenty of money and a Hollow Man, so you can start scoring stuff from out of hand if it costs only 3 advancements. All right, second ice going down on archives. And assuming that was a run on archives with the Chesva, I believe that they have missed a counter that should be on the Kurapira. Once you have 3 of those, you can spend 3 counters to bypass a barrier. It's not a huge economic gain against R+, because all the barriers tend to be pretty small, but you'll take it. Every so often you get 1 credit back going through a barrier. And There we go again. Self-growth program is back. We're bouncing the Kurupira and thinking about what else to bounce. And bouncing the Paladin Puemu. No more rebates on installing stuff. The corp still doesn't want to click to trash anything. This is a brutal place to be fighting through the runner, especially when the corp has found a way to make you keep taking tags on self-growth program. But I'm going to guess that we aren't going to bother clearing tags anymore this matchup. Click for credits, sure gamble. And one more credit. Discard Paladin Puemu. Betting. It looks like we're not going to try to get any value out of that this game. All right, back to the corporation. New card in the remote, trigger Tranquility, gain 2 credits. Tranquility is very strong. It's like having a Maryland campaign just running in your remote. Doesn't even take up the main asset slot. Taking a peek at R&D ice, seeing what we can expect from the runner. Third piece of ice on R&D. We haven't seen a Hermes from the runner. Okay, that looks like we're trashing the Gatekeeper. It's got 0 strength now, not very strong. And stacking a third piece of ice on the remote. Not trashing that Gatekeeper, though. And that looks like a Zaya mark on Archives. And we're just going to install everything. Barely managed to get enough credits together last turn, and now we're going to spend 6 taking breakers. And we have too many tags to count now. We're up to the dice. We're taking a look at Archives. I wish they did the hand chopping thing that a lot of players do to tell you which server they're running. That'd make it easier for me to see what's happening. Yeah, but we are in a run on Archives, and we're thinking, is it worth it? It looks like it's not worth it to res that piece of ice. But there is an off-world office found in Archives, getting through it for 1 Chesfa credit. That'll get you another bankroll, and that should get you a Kurupira counter. Someone ought to remind Whiteblade that Kurupira has text. Then asking for a count on how many cards are left in R&D. It's not a ton, but the corp is doing a respectable job of scoring. So Boomerang looks like that might have been pointed at the innermost ice. We don't have... Yeah, we do not have a multi-access online, it seems. That is a Starlit Knight resed on the inside. We are at threat. It will have a bunch of subroutines due to all these tags. And I think that is a concede from Eric. All right, no, he saw an agenda. I can't quite see. It was what? Okay, found a degree mill on the top of R&D. Excellent rip. And now we're back to... Now we're going to switch sides to game 2. Playing through the very, very stressful 2 Better Citizen programs. What a nasty thing to have scored in R+. So on the reverse side, Whiteblade is playing Aginfusion. This lets you, once per turn, when the runner is approaching a piece of ice, you can trash that ice to move the run to a different server. This makes it impossible to diversion you or do a great many other things. And on an AnOddRadish side, we are playing Mercury. So we got our own criminal. Mercury says when you breach HQ or R&D, if you didn't break any subroutines, making the eye contact, very good job at Radish. Make it staring right into my eyes, making me a bit uncomfortable. But so if you breach HQ or R&D without breaking any subroutines, you access an extra card. And that is limited to once per turn. We're shuffling up. We have about 32 minutes left in the round. We might have a bit of extra time because at the start of the round, we realized the sleeves were not fully transparent and had to re-sleeve the whole deck for both of AnOddRadish's decks. All right, and we have the friendly cut. There's a number of options for this. You can just cut right down the middle of the deck. You can put the top card on the bottom, let them know that their best card is probably going to stay there all game. But as we open up, we see a twinning in the runner's hand. And that looks like both players are taking a mulligan. Corp has to mulligan first when we are making these decisions. And as the runner, you probably, if you're in any kind of tournament, you want to wait for the corp to make their decision, even if you'd informally just take your mulligan if you know your hand's bad. All right, new hands coming out. That is a Fuji asset retrieval at the top of Whiteblade's hand and a Tattoo Bola. And over in the runner's hand, we're just a little bit too difficult to see. All right, ISHQ, Hansei, put something in archives, get 5. That's an excellent economic start. And some of the scariest things that the runner could do to you involve running HQ. So even if they play a diversion of funds, you can stop it without rezzing the ice by just moving it over to archives. The runner installs a prepaid voice pad, so this looks like we're on an event economy. That's 1 recurring credit for playing events. And there's a lot of events out there that cost 1 credit. And down comes a falsified credentials, taking a look at the installed card. That is a Rashida. You always expect this to be Rashida. And today, this is a 5 credit sure gamble. Because it is indeed a sure gamble that the corp probably starts off with Rashida. And then Eric rezzes Rashida because you can do that right after the runner takes that action, and that'll keep them from just playing a second falsified credentials. And now that looks like a run on R&D. You get to take 2 accesses due to Mercury because there's no ice there. And we're leaving them both alone. You don't want to spend a lot of money trashing things out of R&D because the corp hasn't even drawn them. They don't really lose resources if you trash things out of R&D. It's like asking if you'd pay money to trash a card from the bottom of R&D. And click for a credit. You ought to play a little cautiously against Aginfusion because this deck can suddenly create servers that cost you a lot of money. They have big chunky ice and they have an ability to end the run on top of it. So it can get expensive to get into servers really fast. But 2 cards going into the remote. The thing that the corporation probably wants to see is Charlotte with a La Costa grid. And that would allow you to just collect 4 credits a turn. And you just keep doing that for as long as it takes for you to be comfortable until you have lots of money. You can put lots of ice everywhere. So on the runner side, we see a Bravado coming down into HQ. That's a Tattoo Bola. That's a pretty cheap solution to stop that. We are willing to bet we've seen a Fuji asset retrieval that we didn't see it leave the game. So there's probably a Fuji in HQ. But now the runner knows, ooh, inside job. Looks like an inside job on the remote. You don't res because why would you? And we see a Biovault. That is an advanceable upgrade. If it has 2 advancements, you can trash it to end the run. And then that looks like, I think that was a La Costa grid. That gives you 1 free advancement on another card in the root of the same server each turn. And of course, when you start advancing the Biovault, eventually you have this end the run ability available on demand. But La Costa has a very large trash cost. That's probably why the runner left it there. You want to either get him his bones down or at least make the corp pay money to res it. And that's a Spin Doctor res, taking a look at some more cards. Click to draw, and we see a Nisei Mark II in hand. So that's a 4-2. That's an excellent agenda that you would like to score early in Aginfusion. And with the La Costa already in that remote, if the runner doesn't come check this card, then you will get 2 points and an end of the run token at your convenience. The runner over there, still just a prepaid voice pad, and now the corp is starting to pile up upgrades and ice and money. You gotta try to find some way to play the game. All right, draw 1 card, draw another card. It looks like another inside job. All right, that is a boomerang. And that looks like a boomerang to come into HQ, and we do not swap Tattoo Bola. And finding the Nisei Mark II right away, great grab, and then boomerang gets shuffled back into the deck, because if you successfully make it in, then you get the boomerang back. And because Tattoo Bola was rezzed, then no ability to Aginfusion to move the runner somewhere else. All right, we see another card going into the remote. We see a second ice on HQ and a hedge fund. Lots of money for the corporation. We're probably not going to we're probably not going to get another inside job to get Snipe and Agenda out of HQ. And I see we need Eric to start shuffling the hand again so that I can actually look at the cards in there. And it looks like there might be a judge asking them questions right now. All right, we are thinking. Still very little on the table. That is a rejig. So that will let you take an installed program or hardware, pick it up. Oh no, is that just a discarded rejig over there? All right, looks like we're making a dirty laundry run somewhere. Very interesting to see a rejig in a Mercury list. That could suggest that you're on Femme Fatale and you're going to cheat that out somewhere and then rejig to keep it. But dirty laundry running into archives, and we see just a discarded La Costa grid. And we're still thinking, click to draw a card, click to draw another card, and click to class act. That'll hopefully find you something else you can put on the table. So at the end of your turn, you'll just draw 4 cards. We've already drawn cards this turn, so the class act will not give you that extra scry effect. All right, we're back to the corporation's turn. La Costa advances that card in the remote. You see, thinking about putting a thimble rig on the table. The corporation probably looking to, looking to play it carefully. We could be just, we're installing a second ice on the remote, and we're icing archives, and we're putting an upgrade on archives. Because when you've got a La Costa, as long as you're sure that they're not going to get into the remote, you can you can just slow roll your agendas. They will slowly advance themselves. But on the runner side, we have a twinning coming down. The first time you spend a hosted credit every turn, including that one on prepaid voice pad, you get a power counter, and you can use up to 2 of them to access additional cards when you're running HQ or R&D. And that's a Hermes coming down, very strong card. And then that looks like an Earthrise Hotel in the bottom corner. So Hermes, it will just threaten the corporation. If you ever score an agenda, then we pick up a piece of ice. And if you didn't save a click to replay that ice, then that might mean blowing R&D open, and then that can cascade into more and more problems. But if it doesn't look like the runner can actually challenge remotes, then what you can just leave the La Costa there, let it slowly advance that agenda for you. And that looks like we're playing a sure gamble with that prepaid voice pad. We've got a second twinning counter coming down. Then we have inside job. Where are we going with the inside job? We're going into R&D. So we do have the option with Aginfusion, or we just res that. We just res that Bio Vault, and it already has 2 advancement counters, so we just end the run. We don't have to worry about the runner doing anything. And you do have to be worried about like the single accesses whenever Hermes is on the board, because that Bio Vault was unresed. If Eric had let that through, there's always the chance that you steal an agenda, bounce the unresed Bio Vault, and then you lose all the advancements that you've been placing on it, or possibly that other card that's sitting in the remote. All right, runner draws, we end the turn. 1 more advancement from the La Costa grid. And it looks like we are going to see install advance, score the Nisei Mark II. That will give you an agenda counter that you can spend to end the run. Very strong card in an ID that already has a soft end the run by moving you to a different server. Having to fight through 2 of these effects can probably get any other agenda scored. And that's what the corp is counting on. But we see Hermes is going to fire. All right, I must have missed it. I don't see what the Hermes bounced. But perhaps the corporation just used the last click to put it back, because they did have 2 advancements on it at the start of the turn. So you advance, reinstall whatever the Hermes bounces. All right, Spark of Inspiration. All right, this might mean that this is a Mercury build playing no real programs except for some femme fatales. And then when you spark, you come... So got to spend some money for that spark. We pay for the voice pad. That should get you a twinning counter. And we're going to reveal, and I'm betting on femme fatale. It's very expensive, but when it just says bypass, then you can just click to run. You don't need to spend tricks. All right, there we go. This is probably what the rejig is for. And Eric wants to take a look at the cards we've revealed. And we'll shuffle those back. And then from now on, the femme fatale is going to be pointed at a particular piece of ice, and when you encounter it, you can spend credits equal to the subs on that ice to bypass it. Now, this isn't going to work great on every piece of ice. If you hit a... Okay, that is a Boto, and we are paying to res the Boto. Not using up Aginfusion to bounce that anywhere. We just want to cost them 3 credits every time through it. And we are spending 20 encounters, and we find an agenda, and that is going to be a Hermes bounce. Bouncing the HU ice. So we're working on the very dangerous possible cascade of Hermes bounces as you find an agenda, bounce a defense somewhere else, run that place now that's got less defenses, possibly find more agendas, because we haven't seen a lot of agendas so far. Runner carefully considering his options. With only 3 credits, the 3 credits you're paying for Boto can actually be a significant cost. And click for 2 credits, discard a class act. You're going to need those credits. La Costa, notably, is not optional. So even though there's no reason to have an advancement counter on the La Costa grid, you must advance the La Costa grid if there's nothing else to put advancements on. Eric installing another piece of ice on R&D. No, not letting you in for 3 credits. Now you have to worry about whatever this additional piece of ice is, even though the corp does only have 5 credits to threaten you with. All right, that Earthrise Hotel looks to be empty. You start off playing falsified credentials, and that is an asset. So, corporation, low on credits. You're pretty sure that they're going to install something that takes them money rather than taking a risk on an agenda. Now, Charlotte gets rezzed because, again, they already know what it is. Just got to prevent them from playing that 3rd falsified credentials. Now we're spending some money. That is another prepaid voice pad. Then we're going to dirty laundry archives. See what's in here. See if Aginfusion gets used. But no, not going to use Aginfusion. Just res a thimble rig and see if the runner can get through it. Now that the corp's low on money, you offer them to bonk and stop the dirty laundry run, and now you see, can 3 credits stop me from getting through and trashing your Charlotte? And the answer was, unfortunately, there's another thimble rig. Yes, you can. And now the thimble rig moves that femme fatale Boto over to archives, so then that femme is a lot less useful. You see another Tattoo Bola drawn, and Eric installs it straight away on HQ. Changing his mind, going to Hansi review. I didn't catch what the discarded card was. Click to draw, make sure you do things in the right order, and then put what is probably that second Tattoo Bola on HQ. So with Tattoo Bola, if you have multiple of them, you can just keep swapping them with each other, and every time the runner goes through, you get a lot of money. It's fun, but if the runner's willing to do that, that might mean that you are in trouble. All right, Courier Fairing and Earthrise Hotel. Very cheap sources 6 cards as the turns go on. We're off to Eric's turn. We're not going to move the advancement counter onto and off of Charlotte. We're just going to take the money. Overriding the Charlotte. New card in the remote. We are done collecting money. It's time to do something. And Hansi review, discard another card into archives. Archives isn't safe, but at 3 credits, it's probably not worth it to go check the things that Eric was willing to discard. All right, we get the Earthrise Hotel going off, and this interacts very nicely with the class act because you get to look at 3 cards and keep 2 of them. So Earthrise Hotel is incredible when it looks at 9 cards over the course of its tenure. 1 card going off to the bottom. We have 2 prepaid voice pad credits available, so this does start to add up pretty quick. But in this deck doesn't have permanent breakers. Or at least not ones like the conventional Breaker Suite. This deck is probably just using 3 Femme Fatales and a limited number of bypass tricks, trying to just win before those run out. So these Thimble Rigs are a rather serious problem, because normally you play a Femme Fatale and you hope that a problem is dealt with for a while and that you can have an opening to get into R&D. But here we have one more trick coming down. That is an Eru. And yet we got to come read it. Eru says that you may click and take a tag to run archives, and that'll let you sneak and instead access R&D when you do so. And now that we are at threat 3, you will get to access additional cards. However, the Villainous Corp plan is revealed, and there is a Crisium grid on archives. So you cannot declare the run successful. Now you have to decide, am I going to trash a Crisium grid? That's so expensive, and you can't really afford to keep clearing the tags that you get from Eru. And you do have to clear them because you have the twinning. And that's one of the most important cards that you really, really need in this matchup. So keeping an eye on that tag. ID almost goes with it, but we're going to spend the final 2. We're going to spend some very precious credits clearing that tag, because the Corp trashes twinning in a heartbeat, and the game's over if you do that, if you remain tagged. Now the Corporation can just let the Lacostas advance stuff slowly. That looks like advance, another ice on archives, because technically the Boto is vulnerable. I think if you could get rid of the Crisium grid, you'd be willing to pay 3 credits to land an Eru run. Corporation looks in control. These Thimble Rigs and Tattoo Bolas that normally fold once they install the regular breakers is now a serious problem, because there are no regular breakers. These don't fold. These are just ongoing taxes to your temporary tricks. But that's a Sei Dobrado, and that lets you run a central and bypass the first piece of ice you encounter. And with threat, you can bypass a second piece of ice for a click. And so that looks like Aginfusion is spent to move the runner off of R&D, make sure that they can't access anything. And that was spent to move the runner to archives, so we get to see that there's a Bran on archives. But now there's nothing but a Thimble Rig on R&D. So now we can inside job R&D. And we are swapping to put an unknown piece of ice. We're thinking about where to put the Thimble Rig. Okay, new piece of ice that was on archives, moved to defend R&D, and now we're going to access cards. No, we're not. That was the start of turn Thimble Rig. All right, Acosta advancing that card and removing the credits off the table. You can't do that. That playmat's there for a reason. And remembering that the twinning should have gotten a power counter at some point when we did that Estebrado. All right, clicking to put another piece of ice on R&D. Just the plan is clear. Don't let the criminal get away with anything. If there's ever an unrest piece of ice, you can divert these Estebrados over to archives and keep them from getting accesses. In the meantime, this Lacosta grid is advancing what might be the slowest Fuji asset retrieval ever. But if you are going 1-for-1 to keep the runner from accessing centrals, then getting these free advancements every turn is huge. And the runner may not have anything to get into this remote. They may just have the inside jobs. So now we're trying it again. Sable, make a run. I'm going to guess on R&D to try to find stuff. All right. No res on that ice, but we are going to Aginfusion to move them presumably over to archives. So now Aginfusion is used up, and this looks like this was a quick run back into... This looks like this was a click to run back into R&D because that's where the points are. And now we're taking a look at archives to see what could Bran install with that subroutine. And Bran in Aginfusion is a serious deal. That subroutine, if you let it fire, you're just letting them get an Aginfusion trigger in the most valuable spot imaginable, right behind an extremely difficult to break piece of ice. All right, so that looks like we allowed it to fire, and I think, okay, it looks like Eric assumed that the runner was going to click through the Bran. Okay, it looks like we did click through the Bran, allowed the install to fire, and then continued and ran into the second Bran, which the corp res. That was allowed to completely fire, installing another piece of ice on the inside. R&D looks monstrous right now, and whatever's in the remote is all the way up to 5 advancements. Completely clickless scoring of a 5-3 is available here. Now we're taking a look at the runner heap. Probably going to count the inside jobs and Estebrados. But R&D looking really locked up right now. And indeed scoring the Fuji asset retrieval. Using a boomerang and a career fair. The boomerang is a good card. And that might be something that you need. It's hard to tell where you can run because R&D looks like we're done with R&D. We res a Spin Doctor. We're probably looking to just finish the game by installing another agenda. Upgrade on HQ. No, we're considering. All right, upgrade on HQ. Take a credit, and then gaze into the runner's eyes. Earthrise draws for the last time. The runner has a very fully loaded twinning, but it's so hard to go access anywhere. Looks like they realized they might have forgotten a Hermes trigger. So you can call a judge in this situation. What might happen here is that they will say, an entire turn has passed since this trigger. If you forgot it, then it was missed, and we're not going to go back and make it happen. Especially in a casual tournament, we try to keep the game going, but we're not. I don't think we can allow you to do that kind of rollbacks. That is a femme fatale coming out. I think. What was that? Okay. Now that was just moving the femme fatale. What we've actually done is play another class act and draw some cards. But life is tough for the runner right now. There's ice everywhere. Aginfusion can turn off any run event. And there's something in the remote ticking. All right, Bravado. Best of luck. Where are we going with that Bravado? That gets one counter on the twinning. Looks like that might have just been to bounce off of the Thimble Rig to gain the credits, and then Estebrado into HQ. All right, so that is a Thimble. That is a res on the Tattoo Bola. Swap it for a piece of ice in hand, gain some money. Take that second Tattoo Bola, swap it for a piece of ice in hand, gain some money. Then we get to see there was an Anoetic Void on HQ. You're not getting into HQ. Discard some cards, pay some money, run ends. So recognizing that when Estebrado is the main threat and we're going to take a while to enact the corp game plan, Whiteblade probably says, we do not need to put this Anoetic Void on the remote because HQ is where I need to be scared of. And that does indeed shut down what would have been an excellent time to go access a bunch of cards, given how long the game has been running. Looks like we have around a minute left in the round. Probably with an extension due to the re-sleeving. And now we're staring at a very, very difficult set of choices. Because there's some decks out there that are all sentries just to make life difficult, but here we face no sentries, a femme fatale, and nothing to break with it. All right, time has been called in the round for the other tables. I'm betting we've got a little more time on this one. All right, one more Bravado into HQ. And we did indeed put back a Tattoo Bola, and no way to break the Tattoo Bola that I can see. So you get a decent payout for passing that one piece of ice. And in the remote is Charlotte. We will just take the 4 credits and draw 1 card. Overwrite the Charlotte, put a new card in the remote. That's looking like something that ends the game. And now, just in case, they've got one more trick. Install a piece of ice on the remote. Now the runner's counting their heap, probably seeing if he has any remaining tricks. The class act to draw, something to the bottom. We are talking through what is about to happen. Sure gamble. That looks like a Spin Doctor and a Mavirus sitting in the hand. Nothing important there. And AnOddRadish has tons of money, but I can't figure out what you would spend it on here. And click for 2 credits. And it is an agenda. The runner just couldn't get in, so we closed the door, and it looks like we are discussing a possible play with maybe trying to femme fatale through 2 brands. Very, very tough matchup to try to get through Aginfusion every turn. But that was round 3 in our Crown of Servers team tournament. So this is a team tournament. You get to talk to your teammates and ask, hey, what do you think I should do here? But in this case, we have kidnapped 2 of the team members to play on stream, so they don't get to talk to their teammates, but maybe they were just off camera. We will get back to you soon with round 4. I'm gonna go off just real quick.